That was a brilliant way to start the stream. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday, which obviously means it's time for the MMO Buff podcast. And I am not with my normal host, Mizpah. He is currently on many planes towards PAX. I am instead joined by two lovely individuals who I had the pleasure of meeting at Rezzed, and since then, let's just say they are awesome. And yes, Mitchell, I have not, muted myself. Mutezilla did not strike today. Thank goodness. Instead, I am joined by Roberta and Dan, and both of them are independent developers. You may have remembered from last week's episode when we showed the interview that I had with them. They're here today to help discuss indie games and AAA games and the development differences there in between. But before we begin, I have to say a huge hello and everything to everyone who has shown up. We have quite a few of you guys today. So hello to Drosquins Hersey, hello to IRL, Doom Kitten Plays, hi again, it's good to see you. Aussie Gazinator, that can't be Gazzy. And Chaotic, Mitchell, Shania, and there's a Sunny Bunny again. Hi, Sunny Bunny. And Sulico Dist Token. And there are others who I know who are watching who like to hide and not actually log in, which can sometimes make it very hard for me to actually say hello to you. Now, I'm really excited, mainly because of the fact that it's not every day we have guests on. We do have guests periodically. The last guest you guys may remember from Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. We have Brad McQuaid and Celine Grant on to talk about their new show, or their new game. But we've now got you two.
Hello.
So
sorry, I'll stop creeping on your streams.
Hey, it's all a matter of fun and entertainment while at the same time as being educational. So we're slightly informally professional.
So we.
Then it all works out well. What I thought I would do, considering the fact that I don't have Mizpah here to filibuster like he usually likes to do, I am instead going to put these two and myself through what we usually put our guests on the campfire through. And that is a quick icebreaker question to hopefully have you guys get to know them, us to get to know you, and vice versa. So what we're bringing is the 2 truths, 1 lie. And I think because of the fact that I am going to enjoy watching poor Roberta squirm on this one, I'm going to make her go first. So go ahead, my dear. Give us 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself.
Okay, so I think the first one would be I love strawberries. The second one, I think it would be until the age of 11, I thought I would gain gray eyes like my father's if I kept eating vegetables in large quantities. And and the third one is a pelican stole my sandwich when I was very little.
Okay.
See, the thing that gets me, it's the concept of I will have gray eyes if I ate all these vegetables just like my father. I kind of like that concept because it's the kind of thing you'd expect a parent to say to a kid. If you eat your veggies, you will get insert any kind of mechanism to get them to eat veggies possible here. You want to be Popeye? Eat spinach, you know?
Eat spinach. Just eat all the spinach.
All the spinach. Exactly.
Amazing.
I also like the concept of a pelican coming at you. But that's just me being slightly vicious. Okay, Dan, go for it. I'll let you go next.
Okay. I'm really allergic to dogs. I'm not getting a driving license until I get a pilot's license. And I once had to catch and eat raw fish with my hands in Russia.
Now that's not fair because those are also all very viable options. Oh man! But I also I now have this picture of you dressed up with parkas and everything, and you sitting there with these giant mittens trying to catch fish. Or was it one of those situations where it was iced over and you just had to cut the?
No, it was. Probably
See,
in the summer.
See that there's a truth. We now know one of them's true. Now for mine, and of course. Because of the fact that I've done this before on the campfire, I've picked something completely different this time around. So my first one is that I once jammed on my bass guitar with Molly Hatchet. My first amateur radio contact was with a man in Poland. And I got a kiss on the cheek and a big old hug from Wyclef when I met him while interning at a radio station. All of those things could possibly be true.
They are feasible.
I wouldn't know.
I think it's the Polish contact. I honestly think that.
Really? Are you actually into amateur radio?
No.
Ah, so you wouldn't understand if I mentioned things like 10 meters and stuff like that.
No.
Okay. So now I leave it up to you, viewers. You guys tell us which ones you think were lies, which ones were truths, and we'll let you guys speculate about that while we literally take this next moment to get to know the people behind the humor. Because it is one thing to have a brilliant sense of humor and to be slightly wacky to be a developer. Most people will tell you there's a few screws loose in any developer, whether you're an applications developer or a game developer, probably more so in the gaming genre.
Gaming, yeah.
So what I'd like to do is I'd like for you, and this time we'll reverse it. We'll let Roberta go second. Dan, take a moment, give us a little bit of background about yourself, and let people get to know who you are behind the pixelated picture that we have of you here.
Okay, when I was about 12, I wanted to be a game developer, but I didn't know anything about it, and the first thing I ever got was I think it was an Amiga, I can't remember, but my dad basically gave me this book and said learn how to program, so I kind of had to write my own code in order to make games, so yeah, I ended up going through that route. And then I stopped coding for about 4 years, and then I went to school and I started doing this programming course, and I started learning how to program applications and got bored with that very quickly. Then I started writing little applications to sort of circumvent like the security. Like you could have a chat program within classes, so you could all talk. And then because they were finding out what we were typing about, I like wrote an encryption algorithm to learn how to do that. And then like, oh, how to hide these messages from people so they couldn't find what we were talking about. And then I got caught, and I probably slapped on the wrist and said, never do that again.
Wait a second. What type of encryption were you using? I asked this as somebody who understands security. I mean, did you go with RSA? Did you use...
So this was when I was 15 or 16. I wrote an AES encryption so I could have secure communications, and then I kind of stopped doing that after that being caught. So then I don't know, my career basically went from 16 to 18. I was a web developer, and then I got bored of that. Worked in banking.
I love the boredom.
Yeah, I get bored really quick.
Be better.
Yeah, I was a web developer, then I was in banking for about 3 weeks, no, about a month, where I worked on a contract in Dresden Kleinwort, and then I moved into, well, I went to uni.
PLA as well.
PLA, yeah, I worked at PLA after, I went to university, studied computer game development and security and stuff like that, and then I dropped out of uni towards the very end of it. Then I went into PLA, which is a games company, made games for about 6 months, left that, went into advertising, got bored of advertising.
Our moderator Harsey wants to know, Dan, is there anything you've done that you didn't get bored?
Games, honestly.
I was like, oh, please don't say games. Please don't say that games bore you, because this is gonna be such a fun.
Honestly, I think games are the only thing that keep me interested, because I get to be creative, and I get to be a programmer, and I get to design, and I get to do all the cool things that I like doing. So I just like doing that, so I do that. And yeah, I've been making games since, I don't know, 7 months now. We've been working together, so since about that.
It's more, I think, now.
Almost a year. Yeah, actually, it's almost a year.
It's about a year now.
So I left my job in advertising, which was like a tech director thing, where I was kind of making these virtual applications, and it sort of was getting very the same, and yeah, I left that, and then now I've been doing games. I'm not bored of games. Yeah, no, I'm not.
I can just see poor Roberta going, I'm going to smack you upside the back of the head. Pure nightmare. Pure nightmare.
Please don't, because I mean, if I lose like the main programmer, like, I mean, I don't think I'll be able to find anybody that is as good and as quick as him. So that would be, sorry,
the flattery.
And that you can put on your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, yeah.
That would be probably one of the most horrible things that can happen for a game development situation. You go like, oh, I'm bored of this. I don't want to do this anymore. But we have a game. No, all right.
Well, Drostoblood does point out that you do get to do different things in games, so it is not as easy to get bored.
This is why it's very difficult to get bored in what I do. So.
Whereas I know people who thrive and get bored looking at games, but thrive on the gigantic back ends of first in, first out of accountancy, and it's like where they squeal like little girls. So we need different folks for different things in this game, in this world. Okay, so we know a little bit more about Dan, besides the fact that he gets bored incredibly easy unless it has to do with games. What about you, Roberta?
Oh, I don't know where to start from. Okay, so I'll start from, I decided to leave Italy when I was 17 and just decided to just go like, okay, in Italy there won't be any sort of degrees or anything that will let me just, specialize in games or do anything like that. So the first job that I got, and it was just solely for the reason, it was because my brother told me you can't get out, which I was 17 at the time, you can't get out of the house past 12, so do an all-nighter or something like that, until you actually get a full-time job. And so within a week I got a job, and it was amazing because I started in Bubble Media at Hove, and I used to do localization and all that stuff. So playing games and translating and doing functionality testing, which was really good at the time. And then they decided to move most of their headquarters to Canada. And since I was still quite young, they said, oh, do you want to go to Canada? And most of my family went like, as being Italians and being all weird, they said, oh God, no, you can't go away from us for more than a year or so.
Stay with us.
Because the two options that they'd given us were like, you either go for 3 or 5 years. You can't just go for a year or 6 months. So God bless if you didn't like, living in there, or probably didn't feel comfortable. After that, I went for my degree. So I did my 3 years of, I suppose they call it games cultures, but it's like a hybrid degree that allows you to do like animation, all the 3D modeling, production, absolutely anything that goes on in the real industry. So it's really good on that side. So I did programming as well, did my own game by the end of it.
Which he always keeps telling me, I can make this, just let me code it. I'm sitting there like, no,
yeah, okay. It's really different because realistically what happens is when you gotta do your own game, it doesn't matter how you do it, you just gotta do something that works. So you end up hacking through a lot of code and like it works fine, great, no matter how many issues and
Are you telling me that in your game code you actually have comments that say, I have no idea what this does, but I know it works?
I try not to touch it.
This is why I refuse to allow her to touch my code. I'm a perfectionist of mine. I have it all laid out, I have nice comments, I have everything written the way I want it, and then she's like, but why do you make these complex systems? I could just put a trigger on this door and it will open. I'm like, no!
A simple solution for a hard issue. And I suppose what happened.
So please don't break my stuff. Don't do that.
I suppose what happened afterwards is that I got a job at Rightmove, and that was pretty good because it was like what was it, QA analyst. It was really good because all the team just literally got together and they helped me understand how to do automated testing and all that stuff. So giving me more of a background when it comes to programming and things like that.
Reminds me a little bit about Cucumber and Bahat. Just a little bit. They're testing things that you use in web development. Cucumber and Bahat. It's that's testing. Whole nother show. Whole nother topic.
Nice.
There used to be a lot of actual server coding, like because we had to go through the server stacks and actually understand how and why and what happened there, because most developers couldn't be bored.
Exactly why I got out of web development.
Yeah,
you got bored. You got bored.
Yeah.
And I suppose then later I went to Playfish, like EA formerly, or Maxis, or a hell of a lot of things, because realistically I was working on the Sims Social, which is both Maxis and EA and Playfish at the same time, which is very confusing. I have like 3 t-shirts of different brands. Like one is EA, the other one is Maxis, and the other one is a Playfish hoodie, which is confusing. And I was a project lead in there, so it was very good.
A little step up from just being the one who goes, "This doesn't work."
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That.
I quite liked it. I mean, it gave me an insight onto like how actual studios work when it comes to online games, which is completely different when it comes to, you know, a normal development sort of process. You have, oh crap, something just went essentially completely wrong. So you have a million players say they can't get past their quest, and you're like in the studio doing overtime and going like, I have no idea why that happens. So yeah, there's there's a lot of panic that goes on most of the times, which is quite funny. But it's been good.
It's been good, and then Playfish went under.
Yeah, Playfish. Yeah, Playfish went under. Don't wanna say my motivations or reasons.
It went under, and then we made a company together.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of like, I kind of like.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Took their redundancy.
Just so everyone is aware, we made certain to sign NDAs before we started the show so that we wouldn't step on any legal toes.
It's everything is in the press, so it's literally
the company went under. So
yeah.
Well, that does tend to happen, and in fact, that is something we'll be discussing in a future show. Just so that you guys are aware, we will be tackling the end sunsets of games, and that's again for a future show. Right. Dross to Blood wanted me to pass on to Gwen's. Get in the kitchen, good man. No worries. We've got Dross to Blood, who also firmly believes that you, Roberta, are one of the most beautiful game designers he has ever seen. That's an interesting thing, and at some point in time we will be having a show about the differences between men and women in the game development world, because whatever anyone wants to say, there is sort of some kind of strategic roadblocks that can occur, and I think Carsey kind of says it properly when he says, when my father was young, he said to women, "You cannot touch my car." Now guys say to girls, "You cannot touch my code." The world has changed.
I don't mind girls touching my code. It's just her. Trust me, she should not be programming.
No, unfortunately, it's terrible when it comes to programming. I just go like, okay, so this is the easiest way. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work in the long run.
This is why I don't let her code, because she's like, it works, it's fine, but it's on fire, Rob. Why is it working? It's fine, don't worry.
No, don't worry. Those like,
as a developer and coder, I'm sitting here like cringing. Just inside me, I'm like, okay, right. So Roberta does not touch my code. Remember this. Roberta does not touch my code. But yes,
it's just anything that's hacking together is okay when it's prototype, but when it's production, it's like no.
Hey, but you fixed the doors.
She did.
She's obsessed with doors. This is interesting.
Yeah.
There has to be a story here. There has to be a story with doors if it's this obsessive.
Can I say
there was
like
a broken bit of door code, and then she kind of just went. Let me just type this, and I was kind of looking at it like, nah. She kind of fixed it, and I looked at it like, nah, it's not gonna work.
It's not
it's working. Why is it working? And then I kind of looked at it some more, and it's like, yeah, she actually got that right.
Now, see, that's something you need to take to the bank. Getting him to say you were right in the code department, that you just need to have printed up, put over, and whenever he says you can't touch my code, you point to that and you go, why not? But yes.
No.
Okay. I'm actually going to interrupt us and drag us right onto topic. Mainly because you guys have a wide, varied experience. Some people who get into game design or who have aspirations to get into game design are told point blank, you must start out in QA. That's it. You have to start in QA. And yet we have one who's gone through QA. We have one who just went, I'm going to do what I want.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose most of the thing is as soon as you get in QA, is really, really hard to get out of it. Like, they'll probably make you work in that department for about...
Sorry. The Mighty Git, did you oh, I know Mighty Git. You're trolling me. 28 carats later. Are you kidding me?
Stop
Uh-oh.
it.
No.
So like
Oh, no.
you got trolls, eh?
Yeah, that's my troll.
Johnny is nice though.
So you bring the
But
trolls to us. But yes, so as you were saying, you kind of get stuck in the QA field.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is you're gonna go through like the first level, which is like literally normal games tester. Then you go into probably functionality, audio functionality, or whatever you choose to be. And then you gotta wait at least 3 years, and maybe you get a chance to become a programmer, designer, or whatever. What I would suggest is literally study, become better at design, go for a design role straight away. I mean, you can start in Q&A is really good because it allows you to see what is wrong in games and not do the same mistakes. But I mean, I never stopped myself learning new things. I wanted to make my own games. I continued making my own games. So if you don't have something else that goes on in your evenings that keeps your portfolio more interesting to other people, it's going to be really hard to get
what I would say
opinion.
is, if you want to be in games, don't go for any job just because it's in games. I'd say make your own game. Like, you learn the entire process just making games. I've made 5 games. One of them was 28 Carats Later. That was my first ever game, which was horrible.
You cannot do horrible games.
It was awful. But anyway, I learned a lot about games development purely by making games. So if you want to be in the games industry and you want to like apply for roles and stuff like that, have a portfolio of projects you've made. They don't have to be good. Just prove that you can go through the entire cycle.
I would also throw in there are more roles in game development than just coder and designer.
Yeah,
there are.
Absolutely. I was about to say, depends what kind of designer you want to be. I mean, you can be a UI designer, for instance. You can be just an environmental artist / designer. You can be just such a... the games industry is not like you're a designer, like...
Yeah, you design this little thing. Yeah.
I mean, environmental artist / designer, you're supposed to know, I don't know, probably Maya, you're meant to know like a lot
in terms of
more
programming,
than just designing on paper.
In terms of programming, there's specializations like, AI developer, gameplay programmer, design implementation,
level editor.
Level editors. There's so many. So I wouldn't ever say there's just one route to it. But if you want to specialize, like if you want to become an engine developer, write your own engine and prove that you understand how engines are written. If you want to be a game developer,
story writing, accounting, there's a whole bunch. Marketing, PR department. There are a lot of ways to get into the game industry.
But then again, like being an indie is very much about doing all of these things and trying to wear as many hats as possible. So
yes, speaking of indie, I'm actually going to pull in a question from Suliko, because this is, I think, one of the biggest roadblocks independent developers need to go through. Yes, like you said, you have to wear multiple hats in various styles, colors, shapes, and change your t-shirts depending upon which person you're talking to. But when it comes to developing a game, you need to have resources. So if we pull from our lovely Suliko, who always has amazing questions for us, by the way, she is awesome. Thank you so very much. But she says, how would you go about getting funding for games? Now, this is for the independent developer. Do you have a lot of peeps still saying it's not really a business? How do you convince them to part with their cash? Or is it one of those things where you are sitting in your basement going, I'm going to eat ramen or pot noodle today because I can't afford to do it if I'm going to pay my licensing fees to use this particular game engine or these assets or pay for someone who can do the sound for us? How do you balance that?
Do you want to answer that?
You have an answer?
Yeah. Originally, we bootstrapped it with, we were both working 2 jobs, and we kind of were funding on the side to sort of keep the product going. We wanted to make this game, and we were kind of just saying, like...
Are we talking about Light, specifically?
With Light, yeah.
We tell people about Light, by the way, as well.
Oh, Light's a 2D stealth game. Go to lightthegame.com. Yeah, that's my plug.
Go check it out.
Check it out.
Oh,
yeah.
by the way, the trailer is really old. If you're checking
Yeah,
out the website, it's really old. Our screenshots.
This is why we iterate really quickly. Anyway, bootstrap it like we did. We had a pot of money that we could make the game with, and that's what we did. Like we sort of said like, okay, we'll save up for X amount of months, and we kind of had this pot of gold that would kind of last us 3 months to make a prototype. So we started making games. We had our first game, which was called Flipper, which didn't really sell that much.
Good, but I think it was just more of like a project to see how we work together.
And then we wanted to say like, okay, we had this product that we made in a month, and we wanted to take it to the next step. We wanted to make it bigger. So we fleshed out the concept, we put the design doc down, and then we said, okay, we're going to put it on Kickstarter. We kickstarted it. We got halfway through the funding, and then we got a phone call from Team 17 saying they want to fund us. So we kind of jumped at that opportunity to work with them. So we now did that. What I would say is, like, if you want to make something, either have a job on the side and like fund it yourself for as long as you can, and then when you feel like it's ready to take to like the next level, like mass market or have a story writer on board or a musician or something like that, just have someone who can either you convince them that you can actually do it, or just fund it yourself as long as you can.
I suppose the main lesson we learned through going through Kickstarter is that you need a full-time marketing PR person to dedicate to writing all those emails, which, to be honest with you, I'm Italian. I can't just check all the spelling and the punctuation of everything, because you know what? Punctuation is different in Italy as opposed to Britain. You have completely, or probably American as well. I don't know if you have no, I don't know if you have the same differences between English and American. Probably punctuation changes. I don't know.
There are a few things like the Oxford comma.
Absolutely, yes, that's one of them as well. But at the same time, you don't know it. But
no, sorry, I was just reading the comment by Harsey. Flipper is related to Game of Life.
No. But anyhow, you need to have the full-time person. So as soon as we got Team 17 to ask us, you know, you want to just be helped by us, we'll just take care of the marketing and PR. We jumped at the opportunity because, I mean, we are in two, and I already do the accounting and things that I really don't want to do. So I really would skip that process, but I mean, it's really good that we have someone that can help us when we need the help.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is what I was saying with multiple hats. If we can take some of the hats off and give them to someone else, it makes
delegation.
It
learn it.
Delegation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something you need to learn.
Is there a reason you guys went with Kickstarter instead of Indiegogo or some of the other ones out there?
It depends on the game you have. I mean, it can be something like probably the Zeds would do very well. It probably did. I don't know how they did
honestly,
that,
they outfunded it.
Simulation would really work on Indiegogo.
I would say Indiegogo has less of a following than Kickstarter. Kickstarter is more of a known thing, whereas Indiegogo, if you go up to someone in the street and ask, what is Indiegogo? They wouldn't know. But if you ask, what's Kickstarter? They'll know.
Although, if I was to Kickstart a game, not many people do know this. I would go for the US Kickstarter as opposed to the UK side, because they have more people that goes there and actually checks out.
Now, here is where I sit here and I go, there is a difference. I didn't know there were two different sides.
Mostly it's actually the currency. I mean, who knows what pounds, unless people that, you know, like me, that have euro pound equivalent, and I know the conversions and all that. Who knows about pounds?
If you're gonna do a Kickstarter, make sure you have the equivalent of the dollars in the pounds. Like when you say like, oh, it's £5 for this, you have to put the equivalent in dollars as well. So people
and euros.
And euros, yeah. What I would say though is Kickstarter's not good for your first project, because if you go full on Kickstarter first project and you're not known in the industry, or like no one knows you and you're kind of relying on trust, Kickstarter's a trust-based thing. If people don't know you and you don't have a reference or any background in this, then it's just not good to do a Kickstarter first out. I would say bootstrap it as long as you can, and then release a prototype, and then that gives people a feeling that this is actually going to happen.
I would actually tend to disagree.
This is why we do this.
I mean, realistically, if you have very good concepts, concept art, if you have a very good concept on its own, and you have like a prototype or something to show, I mean, that is, and then you show your face and you say, you know, who you are, what is your intention, and all that. Normally, you can succeed. It's literally down to the promotion of the products as opposed to how well known you are in the industry. Because it's not the industry peeps that are necessarily gonna support you. It's actually the crowd.
Yes and no. I don't know. I think it's more to do with the people. This is why we work together. It's great.
You guys slightly remind me of Ms. Penn myself. I will tell you that.
we disagree, but we agree a lot. No, I think it's to do with like more recognition. If people know who you are, you have a proven experience in this field, and you can prove that you're going to do this, then people are more likely to trust you than if you was to say, "I've got these awesome concepts and this amazing prototype. Please play it." But then they're going to look.
But you prove it through the screenshots, the concept, the stuff like that.
If you can prove it, then it's great. If you don't have if you just have a concept in your head and you want to like write down, "Oh, I'm going to make a game. It's going to look like this," and you don't prove it, then people are not going to back you.
Okay, so a lot of the proof is in action more so than just words, yet you need someone to handle the words because of all those silly punctuation marks that can come about.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, do as much as you can to remain 100% creative control by actually bootstrapping, but also understand that sometimes it's okay to ask for help. Just make certain that the help that you're asking for actually follows the guidelines and principles that you yourself wish to have for your game. Don't sell out.
Awesome.
There you go, summarized everything we just blabbered on about for the last 20 minutes.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Nice.
I wish I could do that.
It's one of the things I excel in, trying to translate the untranslatable, because I don't speak English proper or well or good. I don't even know which one to use there.
Nice.
Okay. Now, funding, like we said, is one of the bigger roadblocks. The secondary roadblock is the actual use of creativity. There are some viewers who in previous episodes when we've discussed things like this have brought up comments like, well, if I happen to work as a developer or a designer or a coder inside a AAA environment, I am literally given no creative freedom. I have to do what I am told, cross my T's, dot my I's the way they want me to. Whereas if you're an indie developer, you literally could go, you know what? The doors and the interactable objects should be blue.
Which is what I did and didn't realize until later on. Yeah,
that's a tease to Dan, by the way, because one of the lovely things about Rezzed or conventions, and this is why we stress to people, go to them, is when you get a chance to sit down with a game, your developer is right there. You can turn to them and go, this seems odd to me. And then the developer can make the comments like Danny does, like, I'm not certain what I was thinking. And they'll fix it.
I was playtesting. It was playtesting. It was fantastic for that. We got hundreds of different little changes and tweaks just to make it more playable. That was perfect.
I think, like, getting back to the point, I suppose, like, the main thing of AAA game studios is that as soon as you sign their contract, which is I'm generalizing now, there maybe studios are different from others and all that, what happens is you sign a clause that says everything you do, including in your evenings, in your spare time, or whatever not, actually is property of the company that you're working for.
So all the assets you create belong to them. End of story.
Yes, even in your spare time, because they say your work was influenced by your full-time job, which to an extent it can be true, but at the same time it stifles creativity.
I don't know if that's with every company. I know that the EA contract had it. If you do anything outside of work hours, it's basically theirs. So
yeah, but I've seen a lot. I talked to a lot of people, and they had the same problem. So I mean, you start from there. I actually tried to get that clause removed from my contracts. And then you continue on to another clause where when you say, okay, you want to have your own company, I suppose you want to have an LTD company or something. If you're a director, you can't work as a director and a full-time employee at the same time in another company.
I think they call that something. It's like dual. oh gosh, my brain just completely fried. It's something like you can't have something that is competitive, non-competitive clause or something like that, where you can't be
Yes.
doing what you're
Yes.
doing
Yes.
currently because
Yes.
it's in direct competition.
Absolutely.
Thus, I can't remember what it's
What I
called.
would say with AAA development though, it's not so much you are the programmer that's going to work on everything. You are basically a programmer given a design document which is made by someone who is specific for that thing, and you will work on this
More
segment
than
of
one
code.
someone.
Yeah, you're working on this segment, and that is your remit. You do not work in or outside of that. Outside of that. You just work in that, and that's it.
Right.
Yeah, you just have
So you're
pragmatic tasks
Yeah.
that are very specific to just a very small section of what you're going to do. So realistically, you don't own the game as a programmer. You're not really doing anything like that.
You do this specific set of tasks, and that's it. Whereas I think with indies, you do everything, and that can get overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Like massively overwhelming. So like I was writing AI, and then I was working UI, and then I was doing like usability and design. That's really complicated. That's like 7 people's jobs. So there's a pro and a con. You get full creative control, and it's your thing. Whereas
And you're
AAA,
responsible for the mess ups
which
as well,
is also
which
the
is
downside.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that. I mean, if you're trying to learn how to be efficient, if you're trying to learn what are your mistakes, it's much easier. For instance, I'm gonna probably be harsh again, but if I said something bad about you, then I mean we know each other, we work closely. Then someone as a manager was to tell you, you didn't do this.
You then bring in
very
human
well.
resource issues and a whole bunch of other cans
Yes.
of worms that come with it. Now, we've had some great comments come in, so just going to quickly interrupt you. Angelic Mayhem has said that companies consider it squirreling away the good stuff instead of giving it to them. One thing I will point out that I find interesting to me is the fact that we've got non-compete clause, also general moonlighting stuff from Mr. Pekiston, and from Ethantos, we've got conflict of interest. Those tend to be slightly the same, but slightly different concepts. And apparently, you're not the only one who went through what you went through, Roberta. Mr. Peckerston says, I had a lot more freedom than when I worked as a gameplay coder in AAA for what it's worth. Not sure if my job was necessarily representative of most companies, though. And the Mighty Get said, I also, too, had more freedom as a gameplay and prototype programmer in AAA, but I still prefer indie. So we have a whole bunch. There's always going to be, and I think this is where media, the people like us who are reporters or who discuss games with people or do interviews or what have you, we need to keep getting clear to everyone who pays attention to us. There are always going to be bad apples, both in indie and AAA.
No, totally.
There are going to be people who you sit next to in an office working on something who will drive you absolutely, I just want to say, batshit bonkers. So I'm just going to say it.
No, I think that there's good and bad companies, and like depending on your role or your place or the work environment, you may have like a perfect experience where you have complete control over everything you do, and it's your product and it's yours and your design. Whereas some companies, they're like, no, you work on, you do the tweaking of the facial animations for this character. It's dependent on the place. I wouldn't say it like necessarily representative of the entire games industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Just the place that you work in. So.
And Katamari likes to point out that in the United States, it's considered an overly broad IP clause known as all your brains are belong to us.
Absolutely. Yes. I would agree with that.
And
Yes.
I will also point out, as someone who has worked in big companies down to little ones inside of media as well as outside of media, there is usually a clause in there somewhere that says any work you've done belongs to the company. What I find incredibly difficult, though, is let's say someone takes that step and joins a company to get some experience. Because in all honesty, yes, you can start off on your own and develop your own games on your own, learn through the pitfalls that way. But some people learn better through mentorship than just necessarily doing it by hand. Everyone's learning is different, etc., which is why tutorials
Absolutely.
are a
Totally
pain.
agree with that.
But they start doing this, and then they're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, but I actually want to work on my own game. But I can't do it while I'm working for them.
Yeah.
But everyone turns around to you when you say that to your colleagues. Everyone turns around to you and says, "Just keep it quiet. If you want to do your own project, don't just be boasting on the internet and doing that." I didn't do it. I actually gave up completely. But I mean,
She started
you
shouting
didn't do
about
it. I'm very kind of
Talkative.
talkative about it, but I just stopped at the saying to people it wasn't fair.
Sorry, Ethnos just mentioned something. Universities as well. When you're at university, technically anything you produce while there is property of the university.
Absolutely, yes.
Which
And
actually
people
is
who
why I
can
left.
purchase it back.
Yes.
That's why I left university. I was working on projects, and I felt that I would rather be making my own stuff than finishing a degree, which
Purchasing your.
in hindsight, that's a really bad idea, but it's a really good idea at the time. So
The mighty Git throws, I argued that clause, and as long as I declared my ideas to the company, they would allow me to keep them. I kind of, this might be the paranoid
that's a good
security person in me, because I am just naturally paranoid in general, which is why I studied security. It's one of the things I do. But I find the revealing of intellectual property to somebody else who has the budget to say fork it out before I could scary and terrifying. Because, you know, what happens if I turn to them and I go, I'm going to be working on my own game. You guys are making an MMO RPG. I am going to be making a single player dungeon crawler. Let's just say that's the case.
yeah.
Because, you know, hey, roguelikes, got to give them love. So you have a completely different concept than what the company does. But someone at that meeting has a development side to the company that works on games that are similar to that. All of a sudden, your idea is gone. It's with somebody else. It terrifies me, that kind of concept. I mean, how difficult, and you guys work in it day in and day out. You guys have independent developers. You guys pass your brains together. And it's so weird because I also have this huge love of open source. I firmly believe that the more we share, the greater we can build things. But there's also, in a world where money starts to get involved, a very terrifying reality that your personal developed stories, your code, everything could end up in someone else's control. Carmageddon went through that. They lost complete control over their IP, and they've only just gotten it back, and it's taken them almost 10 years. I mean,
which is why I think open source is great for certain things, but I mean, for games and stuff, if you start telling people your idea, I mean, look at games like 2048. That's widely discussed as a clone of Threes, or like Luftwaffe's. Sorry, they have been cloned so many times by different companies. Like, games are difficult for clones, so like you're gonna get someone copying your idea. It's just you need to kind of, I don't know, make your game better than the clones, which is difficult to do because you do all the hard work doing the design and the implementation.
This is controversial. Please don't get it started.
If you are the person that makes the game, then you do all the hard work doing the design, and someone just basically says, "I like their design concepts. Let's just take them and put them in our game." Like they don't do all the hard work. But
I hate to say it, but it happens in any type of media. I don't know how many people threw a hissy fit about music. You know, there's this great song that is playing in India. Someone takes it, remixes it, uses the same music, just puts an artist from America on it. All of a sudden, it's big in America, and people don't even know that the original artist came up with this. Exactly. I mean, that it happens all the time, and I think that's why it's so terrifying, especially when I know some game designers who are sitting there going, I need help, but I am terrified of asking for it because I am so scared that the moment I ask for help, I'm asking the wrong person.
Yeah, it's very worrying. Like, I mean, we got lucky because we've been through contracts before, so we know what to look for, and we have family that is like a good friend who's a lawyer as well. So if we have any problems with like NDAs and clauses and stuff like that, we just kind of say like, okay, we can't discuss until we do an NDA, and we're very like we have to talk under NDA sometimes just because of that.
I suppose like one of the first things you gotta learn if you go indie and you have your own company is how to deal with these ideas. I mean, if you don't have NDAs, documents ready, and you're kind of smart about it, you're gonna lose probably all your ideas to someone that is gonna clone them. So it's not really good.
Did we forget to turn our phones off?
Well, I did. I didn't know it was here.
Nice. I will throw out, Pulpa says, I can't say I've worked on AAA, but I love that I have total control of my game. Of course, every time something bad happens, it is my fault. But at least I know I have the freedom to have that error margin.
Yes. I think that's the downside with indies. You have complete control, but you also have complete control when it goes wrong. So.
The responsibility sits right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't just say like, oh, this is someone else's
Yeah,
problem.
they screwed up.
Yeah.
Real bad. You can't say that. No.
Yeah, especially if you're the only programmer and it's like, oh, you need to do this code and this code. What one do you choose? The one that's completely game breaking or the one that's feature complete? Yeah, I always tend to pick the one that's like a feature and then say, oh, the game breaking one I'll fix later. No, that's a bad idea. Generally doesn't work out too well for me. This is why Rob's production and like basically says to me, you're an idiot. Work on the cool things. Work on the bugs first, and then do the cool things.
It's really hard to do this because you may be friendly. You may know about most of the publishers actually working with deliverables. So when you do have a certain structure that includes deliverables, you find yourself shifting priorities. So if you do have a game from start to end, the priority is just make the game and make sure you don't put a lot of crap that is completely useless and probably not fun. But if you do have deliverables, what may happen is that you gotta deliver your product in a certain state by this date, which means probably gotta put certain features in sooner than later, probably gotta fix all those bugs that you could fix at the end sooner than later. So it's a lot of planning and just making sure.
I think
I
with
was just...
AAA as well, you have you'd have less
Go ahead.
You have more people to sort of split the work than if you're on your own in indie. So that's the toss-up, I guess. Complete control or complete uncontrolled.
And a lot of overtime volunteers.
Lots of voluntary overtime, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just you raise your hand and you go like, I'm gonna just stay overnight to fix this. I take the responsibility sort of thing. So.
Okay, well, here's what we're going to do. We're getting close to our end time. If you guys who are watching would like us to stick around for a post-show where we technically let our hair down and anything flies when it comes... There we go.
No, it doesn't really work for me.
Don't hate them because they're so beautiful. Maybe they're born with it. Maybe it's just a pixel.
Maybe I should just keep my hat on.
But I mean, hold on. This is the same sort of color.
Yes, you both sort of have a slight ginger flair to you. I wasn't going to mention it, but since we're there,
it's fine.
But what we will be doing, apparently, we do have some people who would like us to stick around, so we will. But I want to close the show out, and what I would like for you both to do is to give for our viewers who will sometimes skim through everything just to get the tiny tidbit at the end, is to give your best piece of advice for why you think it's brilliant to work for AAA and why it's brilliant to be indie, because there are two different pros and it's going to be different based on what your job and your role is. So, I mean, we know there's pros for both. We know there's cons to both, but I think the pros get lost in the cons. So.
All right. I think I'm going to go for AAA and you're going to go for indie, and don't keep it on programmers only though.
Okay.
Try to look above that. However, Aussie has pointed out only a ginger can call another ginger. So
that's my word.
I apparently can't call you ginger, and I do apologize. And I know there's nothing wrong with genders. Are you kidding me? I have many family members who are ginger, and that just makes it sound
don't
worse.
worry about this. I have friends that are ginger. You know, it's totally.
Italians really love gingers.
Oh wow! I think the only way to stop discrimination is to stop noticing.
It's to go to Italy.
Yeah, go to Italy. Yeah.
They love it. Sorry,
They love gingers.
I'm very sorry.
Now I just need to make one mental note here. If you could, Gwen, write down 50 minutes. We've got a curse from the lovely Roberta.
Sorry.
She did it before me.
It's okay. You can break out your swear bombs after we go to post show, but. Before then, go ahead and give me the AAA Pro for working with AAAs or developing a game in a AAA environment.
All right, so I'll start with working, and that's my personal experience, so probably it's going to be completely different for...
It's always going to be subjective.
Yeah. So I love the fact that they had resources that I could just I could go into Battlefield and read all the documentation. I could just read documentation for all the games they have ever made. Going into the code, just looking into the code, just literally you had complete freedom to learn whatever you wanted to at any given time and moment. You could just log in, communicate to any office that I had, ask questions to designers and meet people which are from the industry, which is probably one of the most important things to know people in the industry. I would go on to, then your colleagues are normally very, very, very nice and outgoing, friendly. You're never gonna find yourself in that weird corner where you're the new one in and no one wants to talk to you because you're a newbie. Normally you just, get to meet people as soon as you get in and you're trying to sit down and you go like, hey, hi, 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 hi. It's really such a friendly environment.
I'd say another pro is you have the resources to learn from others.
Yes.
So you're not on your own. You don't have to learn from tutorials and webhooks and stuff. You actually have a support network that you can learn diverse amounts of things from. You have specialists in special areas who can literally say, I know more about programming in AI than you do, so I'm going to ask you loads of questions and you can learn from them, which is
also they do have the time. They do have the time because most of the time, say, programming, what happens is programmers, if you're going to try to disturb a programmer, normally it's impossible, like if you're indie. But AAA studios, generally you have enough resources to cover for that 10 minutes that you're going to disturb whoever. So you can ask for questions like, for instance, how do you do bit shift or stuff like completely obstructive things. I actually found myself doing that. But you can bother somebody for 10-30 minutes and not being weird, being a weird one.
So basically, you've given us a whole boatload of pros. So now it's your turn, Dan. No, cons. We get lost in cons. But
I didn't understand it. It's just pros only.
Pros for indies. I'd say you have complete control of what you make. You can't really specialize. You can specialize if you want to. However, your games will be designed around your specialization. So you kind of end up writing what interests you and stuff. You have complete control over what you do and your complete control over your future. It's like, you don't have to be at a company for 20 years in order to progress the level 3 programmer. You are the programmer.
You don't have to slave up for 3 years to just be ranking up or something.
Yeah, you have complete control to go wherever you want, and that's both good and probably a negative as well. It's scary, but it's cool.
If you're not a fast learner or if you're not very proactive,
you have to learn at your own speed.
Lost.
What I would say is you'd find yourself programming every single hour of the day, and if anyone interrupts you, you're kind of out of your zone for a few minutes, which is difficult. So I would say if you are a self-starter and you can really focus on tasks and you actually believe in what you want to make, I'd say indie is probably the better option for you because you can learn what you want to learn without being told, no, this is what you work on, so therefore you don't need to know that.
Okay. So being proactive, being self-motivated, and it's a matter of control, but at the same time, it's also a matter of flexibility.
If you're a creative at heart and you're also a programmer,
and easily bored,
like I'd say being an indie dev is probably the best thing because you can be creative and you can program what you want, and you can, if you get stuck on a certain task and you're a bit bored of it, you can work on something else and you come back to it and you fix it, and it allows you to not be pigeonholed into you are the designer or you are the gameplay programmer. You are everything and anything to do with games. Not to mention the indie community is really, really awesome. So
it's like a family.
It's a big family.
I'll tell you, that is my impression of the independent games. When I went to Eurogamer last year, I wrote a huge piece on why I firmly believe independent game developers are the future. And I made a judgment call in one of our very first shows where I said I firmly believe the future of MMOs lies in the independent developers' hands. I really do. And I've done a huge piece on it, but then going to Res, seeing all the independent developers, it is very much so a community. And that kind of mentality tickles me pink because I am of the Debian community. I am of the Ubuntu community. I'm of the open source community that is all about, hey, we've just figured out hacks to make this particular bridge work with this particular video card and this Wi-Fi card so that you can do X. And I love that kind of philosophy. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to get it in closed source environments, but I love the community that can be felt with it. But as everyone knows, when it comes to community, there can be downsides to that as well, which we cover in the campfire. But Before I end it with you guys, two things. We have a question from someone who has watched. Then I'm going to give everyone a heads up as to what's coming up later in this week. And then I am going to take us into post-show. We can let our hair down. And at that point in time, anything goes. But yes, so Mr. Peckerston would like to know, it's a question for you guys. What is your favorite unreleased indie stealth game with a female protagonist, and why should everyone buy it?
Oh, hold on, slow down.
Wow. Favorite
what?
unreleased indie stealth game with a female protagonist, and why should everyone buy it?
Oh, come on. Female in game. This is a controversial question just for the sake of it.
I don't know any female stealth games that are indie coming out. Should I? No, I love stealth games, so please tell me if there's another one coming out. I can't wait. I would say one that looks really awesome is Volume, like just because it has a really nice kind of style to it. But I don't think the characters.
No, it's a guy.
I think the question is, when it comes to your game, is the pixel male or female?
I don't actually know.
Yeah, it's. We're not actually 100% sure on that because I really hate the main character's name. And
I hate the main character.
Yeah.
His name's Leonard.
Yeah, so that's meant to be a guy. So now that you're saying, probably we should make him a girl.
I don't know.
Apparently, you're supposed to say the marvelous mistake, or the marvelous
mistake.
There's
There's also the stealth game where it's an anti-stealth game where you're trying to stay in the view cones constantly. And I think the main character that is female, and that looks gorgeous as a game. I don't know if that's the same one.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway,
Angelic Mayhem says, "What is this? 1953? Can it be both?"
I mean, the main reason why we had the queue and we kept it after we tried with humanoids and all that. Actually, there were two main reasons. First of all, the humanoid didn't actually fit the game, and secondly, is because I didn't want to give a sex to the main character. I mean, me being a girl in the first place. So it's really difficult when you have to put a narrative in and you've got to choose. Or probably...
Well, to be honest, the thing with the narrative that we have is there's no voice actor right now. So technically we could name it anything we want, and if you want to play as a female, we just change the name to a female name. Or
you could name the pixel yourself.
Name the pixel yourself. There you go.
And then you could do what I do, and I usually name it whatever happens to be sitting in front of my desk. I can't tell you how many single-player games I have that have pen, pencil, wire, cord, wrapper as
Captain
names.
Coffee Cup, can you get to the front lines?
That's, when it comes to single-player, you don't have to put as much thought into the name of your character. When it comes to, MMOs or multiplayer games or games where people will see a tag, I go insane, and I will spend days planning and prepping before I log in to build that character because I want the perfect name.
The thing I'd say is, if we're indies and there's only two of us making the whole game, there's only so much thought there's only so much design we can put into it.
So
if we start saying, like, okay, we want a multi-tiered storyline where you can play as either male or female, you can choose what you do, what you don't do, it makes this whole branching sort of narrative, and it's just added complications and stuff that is out of scope for a single two-person team. Some games do it, some games can do it, and I really like the fact that they do, but I'm saying from our experience, if we want to put the level of detail we put into the gameplay as opposed to the narrative...
I like sleeping sometimes.
Yeah, sleeping's good, so there's only so much time in a day.
This is where I have to say I could not agree with you more. Sleep would be lovely.
Yeah.
But yes. So you've had multiple suggestions from things like let people name it down to call it Terry. No one will know then if it's male or female. Call it Shannon.
That would actually just be like this is
that's a good idea. Actually, we should name.
Story about me is they call me terrorist back in high school for some reason. Yeah, they call me terrorist because I used to be very controversially different for a girl, and I was very
different for a girl. Okay. Is this one of those things where I should say, for the NSA that is currently listening and picking up and data mining everything that we are saying, please understand that what we're actually referring to is a tomboy, not necessarily a terrorist. Please don't hurt us. We love you.
Okay.
Keyword, you just triggered Google.
Oh no.
Oh, we're
So
screwed.
the shortened version was Terry. That's
Yeah.
all I was
I
getting.
don't know.
to.
I think, yeah, right.
Sorry.
A name that's both male and female. What's it called when you're both?
Shannon.
It's a name that's not got a sex assigned to it.
Androgynous.
Andrea?
Yeah.
Androgyny.
Any name that fits both, I think that would be a nice, easy way of letting you choose the sex of your character based on what you decided. There you go. Design decision right there.
And you've got your first controversy for your game, because everyone knows that if you want media to hit up on you, you got to be controversial, right? Right?
I don't believe in that. No.
He's like, no, don't do this to me.
No. I believe in if you have a good game that sells itself. If you have to force controversy into a game, then you're just.
I totally have to shoot that one and go, I so agree with you. Now, apparently, Angelic Mayhem says we should put that in your LinkedIn profile. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say for everyone who's watching on YouTube, I am very sorry you're going to miss the post show on this, because as you can tell, it's going to be crazy. But for those of you who are sticking around, we're going to take a very brief break because I know these two need to get more to drink, because I just haven't had enough. And then we will be back to discuss some more. So we'll be back shortly. Until then, enjoy the sounds of like some. I have to say to both Dan and Roberta, you guys, thank you so much for coming on, because you guys are awesome and you guys have a lot of opinions. And I like the fact that you also recognize that they are opinions, because everyone is going to have a different experience. And for those of you who are unaware, Dan is working on an independent developers podcast to help people to actually get involved and to help each other out. It's sort of like, I guess you could say, almost like a weekly code jam without the code.
I call it Indie Breakout. It's an indie support group, basically.
There you go. We all need a support groups. Gamers and things get things like the campfire, which is tomorrow for communities. We're discussing finding your place. Not certain if we're going to have a particular guest or not, but I will let people who are watching know, because you guys who are watching get the sneak peeks ahead of time. We are looking at having Troy/Aether joining us soon, who happens to be the community manager at Montego, who used to be the community manager for Carbine Studios. So that's someone we have potentially joining us. Wednesdays are going to be changing in a couple of weeks. I want you guys to be aware we have some massive announcements coming, and I can't reveal all. But this Wednesday, I am doing Warrior decks in Hearthstone with Dr. Marshmallows. And Danny, you and I still need to play a Hearthstone game together with the starter decks.
I do need to beat you on Hearthstone. I just can't wait.
You want to beat me? I am being trained by a card shark.
We will win.
She probably will win. I'll just sit there going, I know cards. Yeah, no.
Now, see, that's just
really
it. Top Draw is doing a slight modification. A bit of it is going to be going into what we're bringing out new on Wednesdays. Then Top Draw is going to be going into a different direction, because we're not just going to be focusing on Hearthstone. We're going to be tackling Hex. We're going to be tackling Soulforge. We're going to be tackling Faria. We're going to be tackling TCGs, CCGs, and SCGs as a whole. As long as they're online, we're going to hit it. So a whole bunch of crazy things are coming there. And then this Friday, we have Gazimov, and we have, hopefully, Kai Dream will be joining us again. But you'll also have myself. Martin may or may not be with us. I'm going to bet he's not, because he's actually going to be at PAX during a WildStar panel that'll be going on at the exact same time that Cosmotronic is going on. Go figure. But you might want to stick around, because he might call in and give us some information after that fact. Now, the only other thing to point out is we've got a competition coming up. And it involves Reaper of Souls. Diablo. People who like that new version of roguelike. But Diablo 3 Reaper of Souls, we have a competition coming up that has t-shirts signed by the lead game developer and a collector's edition. A collector's edition unopened box that gets to be passed out to the winner of, the ultimate winner of our legendary prize, is probably the way Swagzilla will do it. Swagzilla will make magical things happen, as I normally do, because I like to give things away to people. It's so weird. I sit there and I'm like, "Ooh, we're getting the collector's edition." I'm like, "Ooh, how can I set up a great contest?" And I go, "I haven't even gotten it to play yet." That's usually what ends up happening. I'm so quick to shove things out the door that I generally don't keep things for myself, which is where my loot crates come in. Hence the Titanfall t-shirt, which came with my loot crate. But yes. So we're now going to take a break. We will be right back. For those of you who are watching, use this time to run to the bathroom, grab your drinks. For those of you on YouTube, sorry, but, it happens. Hopefully we'll catch you live next time. And again, thank you to Danny and Roberta for joining, and
Thank you so much.
we'll be back shortly.
See
Toodle
ya.
pip.
Wow.
Hello, everyone. Pseudo here. Thanks for watching episode 25 of MMOBuff.TV AAA versus Indie Development with special guests Danny and Roberta from Just a Pixel. If you like what you've seen, please click like, share, and subscribe. And of course, if you would like to view our previous episode, please click the button that has the big box with the moving heads right above. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and we will address them. After all, we love engaging in discourse with our viewers. Speak with you soon. Toodle pip.